he ends up being the ruler over all of Egypt. And so how many of you know that along that path and in his life, there were many moments that he had to make decisions and be a man of integrity and able to get from slave to ruler over Egypt? So the first glimpse in his life is the first point that I want to talk about in this section. And it says, integrity is tested and proven when no one is looking. It's tested and proven when no one is looking. So Joseph gets sold into slavery, and he gets purchased by a man named Potiphar. Potiphar is the captain of Pharaoh's royal guard, so he's really high up, high-ranking official. So he purchases Joseph, and Joseph is a really hard worker. He's really talented, but most importantly, he has God. So Potiphar begins to experience the benefits of being around someone with God. Like, he just has favor. He starts to become blessed. So he puts Joseph in charge of his whole household, his entire household. He's off doing whatever royal guards do, royal guard business. And in the meantime, so really Joseph is living like the best life a slave could ever live. He's in charge of everything, of everyone. Well, in that time frame, Potiphar's wife begins to throw herself at Joseph. And, you know, I'm sure Joseph knew no one was really looking when she did this. It's like the ultimate lunge. If you've ever heard Pastor Stovall speak, I'm sure you've heard about the lunge. So she's throwing herself at him. He's in charge, you know. He might be thinking, I mean, just be real. He's only human. He's only a man. He's in charge. Potiphar's probably nowhere to be found. Obviously, his wife's not faithful. She doesn't have integrity, so she probably wouldn't tell anybody. He might even go to the point of thinking, well, God, I know you placed me here. Like, I know that I'm being able to share the gospel. I know I'm ministering to this group of people. Like, I know if I don't do this, if I don't give in to her, what if they make me leave? Like, I know you, I really believe that you brought me here. You know, for some of us, that might be some of us single girls. Well, God, he's going to church now. At least he's going to church because I'm here. Like, I know you're using me in his life. You know, we really can start to justify that. It's really easy to do that. We've all been there, myself included. And but Joseph, he's a man of integrity, and he knows that not to give into that is not in alignment with what he believes and what he knows. So he denies her. He makes that choice. It costs him everything. He knows it's going to cost him everything, but yet and still he denies her. And so she gets angry, of course, and she accuses him of rape. So the point here is, I'm sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me catch up to myself. What I wrote here is it's passing these kinds of tests with consistency that builds this strong life. You have to pass them with consistency. So I'm just kind of pulling out some tests that Joseph passed, but he passed them time and time again, which leads me to my next point. Integrity is diligence when no one seems to notice or care. Integrity is diligence when no one seems to notice or care. So now here's Joseph. He's already been sold into slavery by his own family. Now he's been wrongly accused and he gets thrown in prison. If anybody probably had the right to be a victim at that point, it was probably Joseph, and he could have easily became the victim. He's in prison. Who's noticing or caring in prison? Like, it really doesn't get any worse than prison. But he doesn't, because he's a man of integrity. And he wholeheartedly believes that God is in control. God is his defender. God's going to take care of him. It's not man that controls his circumstances. It's not his circumstances that matter, but it's who he serves. And so he makes an integrous choice, and he aligns his behavior with that belief, and he begins to serve in prison. He begins to serve. He begins to build a relationship. No one's noticing. No one probably cares, but he does it anyway when no one is looking and no one cares. And it's through the relationships and a series of various things that happen, he gained favor with the warden. The warden puts him in charge of everything. That ultimately ended up to him getting out and becoming the ruler over all of Egypt. And you know, when I was preparing for this, I really just wanted to thank some of you ladies. Many of you come every week. Some of you are in here, you're setting up for sisterhood. No one's noticing. No one's caring. A lot of you are serving, you're doing the bulletin shells. You're in a room. You're doing thousands after thousands after thousands. Then someone comes in and says, oh no, we can't do that this week. Pastor has a word from God. We got to stick this in the bulletins. You need to go undo those other 3,000, right? You've been there. You're recycling the old ones because we're a church that values stewardship. They're peeling off the gum. Ugh, they're disgusting. And, but you're doing that. You could easily have an attitude to say, gosh, Pastor Stovall and Pastor Carrie don't even know I'm doing this. Like, do they even care? Like, the people in the seats, they're so disrespectful. Like, they don't even know the time that it took and the diligence that it took to stuff these and go through these. But you don't, because you know that you serve an audience of one. You're serving because you know that pushes the kingdom forward, and it doesn't matter who's noticing and who cares. And that's really what matters at the end of the day, and that's integrity. That's integrity. So I just want to give a shout out to you guys and just thank you for that. So last but not least in this section, the last fill in the blank here is integrity in private is rewarded by God in public. Integrity in private is rewarded by God in public. So eventually, Joseph was promoted over all of Egypt under Pharaoh. So he starts off a slave, and he ends up being the ruler over Egypt. God ends up restoring his family. He's able to help them in a time of famine. It's just nothing but a God story, and only God could have done that. But it's not an accident. It's not. It's because he made integrous choices consistently in his life. Now, he wasn't perfect. It's really important that you get that. He wasn't perfect. But once he knew, just like David was one of the, he committed murder. He committed adultery. But it's not about being perfect. It's about taking responsibility for what you've done, making things right, repenting if that's what it takes, and moving forward in the way that God would want you to move forward, right? Amen. Okay. So I know I'm sorry, I forgot to tell you I was going to skip around a little bit, but now I'm going back to benefits of integrity. I'm just going to mention a few here. There's a lot of benefits to integrity, but the first one I want to point out, and all of these are from Proverbs, is security. Out of Proverbs 10:9, he who walks with integrity walks securely, but he who perverts his ways will become known. Psalm 25:21, may integrity and uprightness protect me, because my hope is in you. We can't have hope in anything else. We've learned that, not in man. Dana and I were talking about this before, not in humans, not in money, not in jobs, not in friendships. It's only from God, and our security is only going to come from that. The next benefit here is guidance. Proverbs 11:3. The integrity of the upright will guide them, but the perversity of the unfaithful will destroy them. Not take them off the wrong path, not hurt them a little bit, not frustrate them, but will destroy them. Duplicity will destroy us. It will destroy us. In Revelation 3:16 says, so because you are lukewarm, neither hot or cold, I'm about to spit you out of my mouth. When we live a life, it's not that we don't have seasons, and I gave you my example before when I first got saved, so you know the heart that I'm saying this with. But we cannot build this house with wisdom and this strong life, you guys, if we live in duplicity. We just can't. It will destroy us. It will. And, something I was thinking of this week, just kind of a little bit of a lighter example. I'm mentoring this girl. She's 18. She's about to go to college. She has a boyfriend. They're talking about marriage. It's a real life change for her, and she's struggling with a lot of big decisions, and so she's really doing good. She's putting God first. I'm so proud of her, and she prayed, and she felt like her and her boyfriend were supposed to go to the same school. They were going to build a relationship. It's a Christian college. Her parents were good with it, and all of a sudden, her parents come to her and say, we don't think this is a good idea. We don't want you to do this. We're not for it, and we're not going to be in support of that. And she came and she was crying, and she's like, I don't understand, I really prayed. I really thought this was God. How many times have you been in that position? I really thought this was God. Like, I really was sincere in this, and I thought this was God. And on the point here of guidance, what I pointed her to is I said, what we know for sure is that the word says, honor your mother and your father. That doesn't mean that you're going to do everything they say exactly the way they say it for the rest of your life. Like, there's going to come a point where you're going to have to make your own decisions. Sometimes it may not be in complete alignment with what they think. But if you will line up your decision with the word that you're still under your parents' care, they're paying for your college, they have the best interest, then God will change their hearts if it's not him. God, you've now allowed God to be in control of the situation. Look, if you're meant to marry this guy, nobody can stop that. Like, God has that ordained. And so it will give you guidance to line up your choices with integrity, and it's just lining it up with the word. There's security, guidance, and then the last point is true happiness and peace. Out of Proverbs 19:1, better to be poor and honest than to be dishonest and a fool. Gosh, that's a good one. Better to be poor and honest than to be dishonest and a fool. And for those of you that have been following God any amount of time, you know what that true happiness is, that peace. The Bible describes it as a peace that surpasses all understanding. You can be going through the hardest time of your life. You can be experiencing the worst loss. You can be going through, but you have a peace. It doesn't mean that everything's perfect. It doesn't mean that you're like, oh, yay, I'm so glad this is happening in my life. But you have this peace that God's got this. Everything's going to be okay. And so that's just a huge benefit that you can only get from living an integrous life. So, okay, so here's the hardest part. Why is it so difficult to have integrity? Our hearts are easily tricked. Our hearts are easily tricked. We need the Lord's conviction to see rightly. Jeremiah 17:9-10. I pulled this one out of the Message version. The heart is hopelessly dark and deceitful, a puzzle that no one can figure out. But I, God, search the heart and examine the mind. I get to the heart of the human. I get to the root of things. I treat them as they really are, not as they pretend to be. So often, a lot of times in the world, and just even me growing up, you'll hear, follow your heart, follow your heart. But that's not what the word says. The word says your heart is easily tricked. Line your decisions with the word. You can't go wrong from there. Next, fill in the blank. It takes a certain level of self-sacrifice to have complete integrity. So the fill in the blank is sacrifice. It takes a certain level of self-sacrifice to have complete integrity. You can read Psalm 15. I'm not going to read the whole thing just for the sake of time,